intern. Hello. Sadiq is joining from Abuja, QA engineer. Hi. Olukemi, Lagos State product implementation consultant. Love it. She is here. I'm going to read as much as I can. Lagos account officer, Idu, Lagos junior QA officer, Balahon, Lagos QA, Lagos technical support, Abuja QA, sorry, Chiamaka from Abuja QA, Moyoluwa, Lagos record officer, Uluyemi, Lagos QA, Rotimi from Ogun State QA intern, Yetunde from Lagos, a banking executive, Vera, Lagos QA engineer, Abiola, Lagos QA, Daudu, Lagos QA intern. Okay. Esther from Delta, amazing. New in tech QA. Toby Loba, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. That's why I went straight to the one that's familiar. Lagos QA. Tim Tokwe, Lagos QA. Juliana, Lagos QA. Lisami, Lagos QA. Adebisi, Lagos QA, Bolade QA intern, Ibadan QA, Michael, a teacher but want to transit into QA. Amazing. Taufik, SOC analyst, Kaduna. Wow. Okay. Really glad to have you guys here. I want to give a special shout out to the convener of QA Tech Bro, and I don't know how to pronounce the other academy. Is it QAce? I hope that's correct. Academy, Toby Fagbombe. Shout out to you, my guy. We worked together for a few years at Copper. And I'm really glad that oh, you're here. Hi. I'm glad that he's seen that I have small gift and I can come and share it with you guys. Okay, awesome. I see that most of our audience is QA, so that's fine. The way I have set up my slides is sort of a mix because I want you to see how QA balances product management, balances engineering to a certain degree on this topic, right? So I will go right into it. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just give me a moment to test this out and minimize everything else in my background. Um, I'm not sure which is which. Sorry, one sec. I think I have to change the permission. I'll be back in 1 minute. I have an issue with my laptop. Sorry.
Okay. While we're waiting for Adila to set up the slides that we're going to be used to teach today, I want you guys to write in one word in the chat box how the past few sessions have been for you. Because I know it's been amazing and I've learned a lot, even as I'm learned a lot on how to navigate this tech industry. So in one word, how has it been for you? How has the session been while we're waiting for her to join? I used to do something. No. Oh, sorry guys, I didn't know I was muted. Yes, it's been okay. She's back. She's back. Please. Okay, great. Welcome back. Great,
All right.
everyone. So she's back. Let's wait for Adela. Are you back?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Over to you. Yes, I can.
Sure. I want to make sure you guys are seeing the right thing. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen right now.
Okay, can you see the canvas screen?
No, still show. Oh, yes, now we can see the camera screen.
All right, cool, cool, cool. Let me see if I can present. Okay. Let me see what view I need to give myself. I just want to make sure I can see myself as I speak. So everyone confirm you can see my screen again, please.
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, cool. Thank you. I'll try to go into, so I have to put the Zoom panels on the call so that, intermittently I can check. So if anyone from the QA's team can help me, maybe with questions and stuff, I will try to stop in between as I speak on the call. Okay. So let us go in. Today we're talking about building a quality first mindset. And this is how we're going to go through it. This is like a short talk. I've been given around 30 minutes, so I'm gonna actually time myself as well so that I don't go overboard. Because it's important to me that Mr. Toby invites me back to come and speak again. So let me just set a timer and then see how far we can go with that. This is what is going to be our table of content. I have also shared my slides with the team at the QS Academy. So I believe after this, they'll be sharing this with you as well. I mean, it comes freely. You can also get to meet me, ask questions at the end of this session. Okay. So let's go into the first slide. So I want you to just read this with me. Imagine a world where you receive a call from a friend. Let's say you're in uni. For most of you, you have some level of QA knowledge on this call. So imagine a friend of yours, very close friend, asks you to send them money, and you send them money, right? Let's say 30,000. And you're kind enough to borrow them that amount. But after about 30 minutes, the friend calls back and says, my guy, thank you so much. I asked for 30. You sent me another 30 after, meaning 60. And you're like, huh? No, I didn't send 60. I sent only 30. And consequently, you then begin to receive multiple debits to your account of that same 30,000 naira to your friend, right? Now, I'm not speaking about something that is far-fetched. This is actually something that has happened to somebody that I know. Because QA wasn't done well. And the reason why it is important to build quality into the mindset that you have as an engineer, as a PM, as a QA assurance engineer is so that silly bugs like this, and I mean, I call it silly, but it's actually really big and really technical because this is what makes a lot of customers queue at banks on Monday mornings because something is just wrong with their infrastructure. And I don't mean this for only banks. It could be a fintech firm. It could be anything, right? If you don't build with quality in mind, if you avoid tech debt, if you avoid doing the things that should be in place because you're rushing to release to production, a lot of rubbish will happen. And a lot of rubbish that will still come back to your table because at the end of the day, it's your duty to ensure that no bugs go to production, but also if they do come, that you fix them efficiently. Or when the engineers make some fixes, you're able to test them appropriately and always ensure releases at the time that is right. Okay. So, hi, my name is Adela. Apart from that really short preamble, there are a few things I'd like you to know about me. And there are many things that I don't want you to give me a comment on. I just want to be able to share and move on in this training. So I have about 7 years of product experience. I started to work in the year of the Lord 2017 I was privileged after my NYSC to get a job at a fintech firm called Global Accelerex. At the time, it was one of the top firms for POS businesses. So deploying POS devices, building the applications that work on POS devices, and even doing customizations. At the time when agency banking wasn't popular, we were doing it. So I've done quite a lot in the industry. Fintech, I moved on to InsurTech with a firm called Cassava, ensuring that customers have access to insurance. We had a partnership with Kuda Bank, which ensured that for every customer who enrolled at Kuda, they would have some level of insurance with their account. Moved on to a firm called Sprint for remittances, essentially allowing customers in Nigeria, Ghana, to send money abroad, the UK, the US, and many more, and essentially exchange. And I also built something called like a gifting platform for people who didn't necessarily want to send money home, but wanted to be able to send something. So we integrated with a platform for gifting, and then customers were able to, from abroad, send gifts to their loved ones, to their families, to their friends. Right now, I work at Mcopa. It's a credit firm, and our vision or mission is to make progress, help everyday earners make progress every day. We sell Nokia and Samsung phones, and we help them to pay small until they complete the payment of the phone. And we now layer retention products on it. So retention products like loans, retention products like data bundles, retention products like health insurance. Okay. Mcopa is where I met the lovely, the wonderful Mr. Toby. I have a proven track record of taking products from zero, essentially discovery stages. I just have an idea of something to build, to fully launching it and making them profitable. I love Man U. I support them. I don't want to hear your thoughts or concerns about that, of my preferred club. You can keep it to yourself. And then one thing that you clearly didn't ask for is the food that I like to eat. I really like bread. I can eat all the kinds of bread as many times as possible. Okay. That's a simple thing about me. It's important for me to sort of make the environment for this a bit balanced. It's not too serious. It is also serious. But if you'd like to get to know me, get to know more about my work, that's my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to search for me. This exact image on the slide is the exact image on my LinkedIn profile. So it won't be hard for you to find me. Okay. So let's get into it. There's something called an Agile manifesto. And what this Agile manifesto does, think of it as when you want to start the foundations for something. There are a group of people who come together to say, this is the baseline for what this thing is going to be. And then over the years, we continue to layer on it, right? So that's what the Agile manifesto is about. When the Agile mindset was going to start, there were a group of people who came together led by Kent Beck, who led essentially what we call the Agile mindset today, or Agile product management. And in that Agile manifesto, which I have linked, I don't want to spend too much time going through that, but keep it at top of mind and make sure you can Google it or read about it later. It comprises of 4 Agile values and 12 Agile principles. Now, for this topic specifically, where quality is concerned, what I have done is I've taken out one of those Agile values and 2 of those Agile principles that actually tie into quality. Now, all of the values and principles at the end of the day have to do with quality, but there are 2 specifically, well, one value and 2 principles that will help me in elaborating on this discussion where quality is concerned. Okay. Now, these are essentially what they are. The value is that we have working software over comprehensive documentation, right? So one of the things that engineers, PMs, QA, assurance engineers really proud themselves on is that we have a document that shows what this product is about. Now, as a PM, I would have something called a product brief, or depending on whatever it is you call it at your firm. It could be a product brief, it could be a product specification document. It could be a product description document, a PDD, or all are one and the same. For engineers, they could have something called a software, I forget how you put it now, a technical specifications document, right? Which is essentially how they say this is how they're going to do the work. Most of them will have like a specifications diagram for how the APIs will call each other. This is how these events will do this, will flow from this. If the decision is yes, this will happen. If the decision is no, this will happen. And then this is how we get to the end, right? Again, with QA, you guys also have like a release plan document, or essentially aligning with the PMs and the engineers at the beginning to ensure that whatever it is that we have to build, this is our test plan around it before we release it. Now, it is not enough to have good documentation but bad software. There's no point in releasing software if it's not going to work. And the reason why we have software in the first place is because we're trying to solve a customer's problem, which is why it's called value, right? The reasons why customers try to use any product that you or a firm develops is because they have a problem. Your firm has said that they will meet the need by giving them value, and this is how they would do it. So it is important that the software that is built by the engineers, guided by the PMs, and tested by the QA engineers is working. You see that I've mentioned 3 people that are involved in that process, but ultimately, the person who guarantees the release of that software into production, the person that says it's okay that I can release this, is people like Mr. Toby and people like most of you all on this call. So it's very important that the software works, as in you test that as a customer, because that's what QA does. I am putting myself in the customer's shoes to make sure every process that we've aligned to make sure this product works should work. Okay. Now we go into 2 principles. Number 1, satisfy the customer. Again, sometimes we have software that works but doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't make any sense. There are people who haven't done a good job of solving the actual problem customers have come to complain about. And it's a generic problem that could happen if you're not paying attention at the discovery stages with the customer. What do you do at discovery? I want to really ensure that I understand the problem that the customer is going through and I can build the requirements to solve it. At discovery stage, you're not really talking solution yet. You just want to make sure the problem that the customer has is being solved. Let's give an example. SpaceStack just released something called Zap, right? And Zap is supposed to allow any customer to combine all their different bank accounts, as many bank accounts as possible, and to be able to send money anywhere in the world, right? Now, some people argued that, and instantly, that's the value proposition. A lot of people have argued that, isn't that the same thing as like OPay? Or like a money point or a pound pay. They've essentially moved away from your typical banking structure, and they've created an infrastructure for you to let us send money very efficiently. But Paystack is saying no, that we're doing more than just sending money efficiently. There's no other bank actually that can combine all your banks together to be able to do that. So maybe, and I haven't used this before, even though I have it downloaded on my phone, but maybe an idea that they have is you can sort of combine the balances in your bank accounts to be able to send money. Again, an idea. I don't mean that that's what they're actually planning to do, but there's literally no other bank today in Nigeria that solves that problem. Now, when you are able to articulate that problem specifically, then you can write down the requirements for that problem, right? And then it's that then helps you to build, okay, this is what is now going to be my product brief in terms of this is what we're going to solve for. This is out of scope for phase 1 or for the MVP, and so on and so forth. Then when you built that, the QA engineer and the development engineers know, okay, this is the scope for what we're solving in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. These are the requirements in terms of the acceptance criteria. If you've never heard of what an acceptance criteria is, it's basically a set of rules that determine what user story should pass. Very simple. So for example, an acceptance criteria can be given that a customer logs into their account. When they are on the login page, they should be able to enter username and password, click the confirm button, and they should be able to get into the application. That's a simple acceptance criteria, okay? So again, the principle helps you to satisfy the customer really well. And at this stage, and I'll talk about this as we go on, at the stage where those acceptance criteria start to come in, the QA needs to be abreast of that knowledge such that when they are testing, you're testing against the acceptance criteria, right? If there's one acceptance criteria that you cannot see when you're testing, then there's a problem. It means that something has not been solved for. So you now ask the question, are we still doing this in phase 1? Are we doing this in phase 2? Blah, 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 right? Or why did we skip this? Was it a mistake in the development process, and so on and so forth, okay? Before I go into the last principle, I want to make sure that everyone sort of understands where we are. Are you feeling me? Are you feeling us? I need to see comments in the chat. All right, all right. More comments, more comments. Fantastic. Thank you. All right, so the last principle here is pay continuous attention to technical excellence, right? And that means quality is non-negotiable. I'll talk about it as we move on. So with whichever release you do, it's almost like the quality should be sustained as you continue with your releases. There should never be a reason why it should drop beyond that point, okay? Let's get into it a bit more. So what I've done is I took an image of what a typical product cycle is. And this is something that's available online. So if you Google this, you can see many, many things. But I've added text on the side for what I think is really necessary at each stage. Now, let me tell you a common mistake that QA engineers make. You wait until the testing stage of the product before you give your input. That's where you are lacking a quality mindset in agile development, right? It's not the power of a QA engineer is that you're involved from the beginning. And the way that you can spot that you are involved from the beginning is when you're asking the most important questions at every stage of the development. Now, let me give an example. There's something called a Three Amigos that we do at MCOPA, right? I don't know if this is a generic thing that happens, but again, you can Google it. MCOPA was the first place I even encountered it, to be honest, where it was like purely defined. But what a Three Amigos means is there's a user story that we want to work on, right? The three in the Three Amigos means there must be 3 people on your development team in that. Now, compulsorily, it should, depending on the kind of story. So if it's like a backend story, sometimes the PM doesn't need to be there if it's like a really, really big backend heavy story, except the PM is like a technical PM that understands details, right? But ideally, the average user story should have the PM, 1 development engineer, 1 QA engineer, right? 3 amigos. Amigos as in AMIGOS. What they do in those calls is the PM introduces a story saying, okay, this is what we would like to do. And the 3 of them in that call talk about that story. So how do we have the documentation for it, which is the PM's responsibility? Then we ask questions like, how do we solve for this? Like, because the PM's job is to explain to those 2 people on the call, this is what we want to do. The engineer's job is to figure out how to solve it. The QA's job is how to figure out how to test for the solution that is being developed against the problem. So on that call, we would discuss the problem. We'll talk a bit about the solution, but not completely, right? The developer can say something like, oh, I have an idea of what to do in this case. But we usually leave it to something called a refinement call so that the engineer then walks you through the solution of that problem. Okay, so 3 amigos. Now, the next call is refinement, where the engineer now says, okay, based on this 3 amigo call we had, this is what I think the solution would be, right? And when they define that solution to you, the 3 of you, if you want to add a 4th, it's fine on that call, but the minimum requirement for that call is 3. You can be as large as possible. What then happens is you do a vote, right, to determine how difficult or easy that story is. We call it assigning a story point, right? So it can be anywhere from one story point to like, I think typically with sprints, you shouldn't have a story that is too difficult within a sprint, except that's the only thing you want to discuss. So when your story point is getting to a 13, it means that it requires a lot of development work to do. If your story point is 1, 2, 3, 5, it means that it can be solved within a week of a sprint. And a sprint typically is 2 weeks, right? Anything from 8, 13, 21, there's a lot of work. So it means if it's a 13-point or 21-point story, you need to break down that solution into bits. So you don't develop it as just one, because the engineer could end up just spending their entire time doing that, and that's not productive. So you want to break it into chunks so that it's like a 5, 5, 5 or 5 and 3, right? That the person can work on. Okay. So I'm going through these steps intricately so that you understand a lot of places that the QA can come in before testing then starts, right? Because the mistake that a lot of QAs make is when you now come to testing stage, you now be asking for documents. That's not how we work here, please. So at design stage, remember, we've gone to the field, we've gathered some requirements, we are asking customers, this is what you're this is the problem that you have. Okay, if we do this, does this solve your problem? Okay, if we do this, does this solve your problem? Again, we're not talking full solutions. We're just trying to get a sense of what the customer is thinking in that period. And then if it's a front-end facing solution, like it has a web view, an Android view, the designer or the product design team will then design something. Now, QA, the way you can spot issue there, look at that design. If it's a Figma design, Miro board, whatever it is you use at your company, look at that design, spot loopholes. If they are showing username and password and there's no button to click, or there's a login button, but there's no forgot password button, those are quick loopholes. There are certain things on a login page that are generic. If you don't have forgot password, why are you building a login screen? It's a problem, because people will forget their passwords. If you do forgot password, but the customer doesn't get an OTP, it's a problem. Are you guys getting the sense of it? Right? So you can spot loopholes within the design stage very quickly. You can, when you have those 3 Amigo calls and you're looking at the designs, you can say, okay, I don't understand what this is showing here. It could even be a color. Maybe they use red for login instead of green, or it's supposed to be transparent, and then when the customer clicks it now shows a color. Everything is visually appealing, right? So again, it's your job to spot some of those things and immediately note it to the PM or to the product designer to tell them to update. Now, the next stage is development. At the design stage, what we are saying is we have sort of created a preliminary design for what we think is going to be a solution for this customer, right? And then we've done a 3 Amigos call, we've refined it, and we know that this is going to solve the problem for the customers, right? In between, the PM could do something like a validation where they actually take the designs in a prototype manner. If you guys haven't heard this language, sorry, I'll try to break it down as much as I can. But a prototype means from that design, they build, it's not really a build, but like in Figma, you can have a phone-like type copy of what that prototype is. So the customer can click it and you can just sort of watch them go through the process, right? That's a prototype. So if you validated that the prototype works for the customer, then you can then give the PM gives the developers approval. Okay, let's continue. Let's start to build, right? When they start to build, because you have knowledge of the acceptance criteria for which the engineers are building for, start writing your planning documents there. In fact, when Toby and I worked together, he already knew this. Whenever we're having a refinement call or a 3 Amigos call, and the engineer say, okay, we're giving this a 5-story point, we vote together. I'm already asking Toby, what's your design release plan? What's your what's your testing plan for this work, right? Because you are an important part of getting that work to be completed. Now, the third part is now solely on you. Now, engineers usually will say that they will do some level of unit testing. Okay, I see Abiola asks what is Amigo. I hope you understand. What if you work in an organization where you're only involved in the testing stage? You can get, I think I've explained how you can get involved in many other stages, but happy to take questions as we go on. So testing is rigorous, should be thorough. I'm going to share a few slides more as you go forward. Should be rigorous, should be thorough, should take into account every scenario, again, which is why your testing plan must be as detailed as possible, okay? And then release, right? Release is, I have, as the QA engineer, done my thorough checks and I am happy for this to be given to customers. Now, this is another place where, and if you see what I've written here, very important. Sometimes engineers do this thing where they code and then they put a lot of pressure on the QA team to quickly test so that they can release. My brothers and sisters, don't fall into that trap. Tell them from the beginning. Remember that I said you are involved at the design stage. So this is where your voice needs to be amplified. If at the development stage, you're already writing your testing plan, you have a good knowledge of how long it's going to take you to test. So be letting them know from that time. Whenever it is you have your stories ready, you have your development completed, I still need 10 days to do my full testing. I still need 5 days. As a team, you can now work within a compromise, maybe because management says, we need to get this thing out as quickly as possible. But you should have enough power as a QA engineer to do your best within a stipulated amount of time, stipulated that is not stressing you amongst all the other work you do, right? Before you then move on to release. Because if you release nonsense, you will be blamed. So would you rather take your time to do the testing or just release because everybody's telling you to release? I don't even like working with people like that. That's my 25 minutes mark. I think I have about 5 more, right? So it is important that you get to doing those things. Let me set another 5 minutes and then I'll go ahead. All right. So let's move on. Now, this is what you do to build a quality assurance mindset in Agile, right? So prevention is better than detection. There's no glory for releasing something in production. You know, say, oh my God, there's a bug. It's not cute, to be honest. If you had spotted it before it went into production, there will be a lot of, okay, I have extra minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll come back to your questions. I just want to make sure that I go through this really quickly. Let me set 10 minutes instead. Okay. So it's important that you spot the loopholes, which is essentially what you build into your testing plans to prevent issues from starting up instead of just letting them go through like that. Okay? Very important. Then continuous feedback loop, right? Which is essentially as you are testing, there's one of, apart from Toby, there's an excellent QA engineer. She's still my friend till date, who I just learned how to do things more efficiently through her, even though she was a QA engineer. If you start to do tests on something, right, and you are spotting that there's a mistake, don't wait till you finish before you start to prop it up. Because, in fact, if you start to spot multiple things within a certain amount of time, raise it quickly, right? Sometimes I understand the value of waiting till the end to be able to share, but it's important that you also share at the time, like in progress, because it keeps everyone on their toes. Let me tell you, give an exact description. If you say you're going to take 10 days from when the development is released, guys, everyone, please give me a moment. For some reason, I'm getting a call. Sorry about this, guys.
Okay, while we're waiting for Adela, how's the session been? I hope you guys are taking notes because it's been amazing. Yes, Adela, we can see your WhatsApp. Please, can you like minimize the screen? Thank you very much.
All right, all
Okay,
right,
she's
all
back.
right. I am back. Sorry about that. Many calls today. Um, let's go back. Share. All right. So let's continue. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay, fantastic. So I think I was trying to explain continuous feedback loop. So if the developer develops and then you say you have 10 days, there's that 10 days to the developer is like 10 days of silence to a certain degree. So they're not going to wait for you to finish. They're going to move on to some other work. Now, if you now come back at the end of the 10th day to say there's an issue, it sort of destabilizes them a bit. Why? Now, engineers don't like context switching. Let me explain what that means. If they finished a piece of work in their minds, they finished a piece of work. So within that 10 days, they've started working on something else. So when you say there's a problem, which they should be happy to fix, they are unhappy because you are dragging them back, which is a good thing, by the way. But the way you maintain that is and this is depending on how fast you're able to test and how you get feedback. Within the 10 days, you start to share feedback on what is going on. So if you have a test planning sheet and you say this is failed, and you put screenshots, they can see it within the 10 days and they already start to fix. So they don't have to wait for the end of 10 days. Hope that makes sense. So next one is built-in quality. So as part of your test plans, as part of the acceptance criteria, you're putting in that mindset of nothing short of this is what is required, right? In fact, if I see something in development that is worse, I can easily just report to the engineering lead and say, this person is writing code like they're not thinking globally. This is not a quality-led global mindset, right? That you have power to do that. Another process that you shouldn't skip is the definition of done. This is also part of Agile, right? And definition of done means that you essentially there's a list of checklists, there's a checklist for that tasks to pass into production, right? Each company, each tech team should have theirs. So in MCOPA, some of it is like we have a user story, we have an acceptance criteria, we have a solution, we have user story points assigned, we have a test plan depending on the story. If it's a design story, if it's a front-end story, we have a design. If it's a front-end story or back-end story, we have a demo that should be done. So demo meaning within our small group of people that did 3 amigos or refinements, we should see that the thing you fixed is fixed together before we release it to production. So we don't just, at MCOPA, we don't just release. We demo internally before we release. Okay? Those are things that you should ideally set as your definition of done. Then avoid tech debt. Now, tech debt may even have existed before you joined the company. But to a certain extent, where you consider built-in quality is where you're now saying, as we continue to progress, as we are building, we factor in I'm noticing that this thing, if it keeps occurring, it will affect customers. Let's fix it. That's you advocating for the customer in the development process. And then follow due processes, right? So don't skip anything because of timeline or one thing. In the plan, and this is what I'm saying, I'm emphasizing this because QA really, you have power. You need to insert yourself in the plan in such a way that they see that you are following due process, that everything must follow due process. Sorry, guys. Again, please hold on.
Hey guys, while we're waiting for the alarm, please note down your questions and there will be a Q&A session. Will be a quiz also, as usual, noting down points that you're learning from it. Thank you very much. And I hope you guys are enjoying this join us from the you watched from the start. So I perfectly understand it. But next time, please try to join on time. Thank you very much.
Okay, I am back now. Apologies for that, guys. It's a dispatch rider, and I'm the only one at home, so I needed to respond to it. So that'll be the last time I've asked him to give. Okay, so yeah, follow due process. Okay. Now the next stage is what quality is not. I've broken this into like three different stages, which is technical, behavioral, and process. And each of it is where, each of us should be nudged in the process, right? So technical, when you avoid giving any inputs in the refinement stages. Now, I've seen situations where you have a QA that is just quiet in the Three Amigos call, just quiet in refinement. Oh, yeah, everybody, let's vote. They are not there. It doesn't help you. Let me tell you why. If you stay quiet during the refinement stage and we all vote that the story point is 5, what you've avoided is asking the questions that are necessary to trigger thoughts that maybe the engineer or the PM hasn't thought about. If you now bring it on 2 days after, it's going to affect your level of seriousness, right? It's going to be seen as if, why didn't this person think about this whilst we were on the call, right? And then if it becomes a repeated activity, it doesn't help the team at all, right? So you need to be a contributing factor to those discussions. And the way you can see that is when you two, you become the customer that you're trying to test for. So you have a very vast knowledge of what this acceptance criteria is, of what the product brief is. In fact, you have the ability to put comments because nobody will stop you. Put comments, comment on it. I don't understand what this means. Can you elaborate? As the PM, I don't have any other job but to elaborate to you that this is what I'm trying to solve for, right? So that it makes your testing life easier. Another issue is lack of test coverage. When you don't speak about avoidable technical debt, when you have frequent bugs in production, it doesn't speak well of the QA or of the quality mindset that you're trying to build. Behavioral, no flexibility. What happens with Agile is that sometimes we have issues where towards the end of development, it's possible that we spot something and we say we need to quickly fix or we need to quickly add, maybe as a result of management driven development to a certain extent. It could happen at certain companies. If it's a startup, it's happening every day. So you can imagine that, the startup says, we've almost finished testing. They now say, oh, there's one more thing we've just quickly added. We quickly test it. That's fine in the sense that that's the sort of environment of the company that you're built in. But the way that you show your professional abilities is to become flexible with it. Now, I'm not saying take on a lot of work that it then begins to affect your ability to do work efficiently, but be flexible enough to say, okay, I think I'll be able to test this within this time frame. Give feedback. Don't just say, oh no, we're not doing. It's not helping anybody. We're all committed to solving a problem for the customer. So if you're tired of testing, trust me, the product manager is tired of writing documents. The engineer too is tired of writing code to fix that problem. We're all tired, if you think about it. But if people within the previous chain of the development process are able to be flexible, trust me, you don't want to be the one that's sort of not letting it flow through, okay? Avoid last minute test cases or nudges. Now, I believe the QA team has this nudge or this sense now, and this is because you are the most familiar with the app or with the thing that is being released. The product manager thinks they are, They are to a certain extent. But the person who actually spends a lot of time, almost all the time, going through this app is the QA. Sometimes you will have nudges. Let me just test this thing. It's not part of my test case, but if the development is saying that it will result into this, is it possible that it could possibly touch this? Those edge cases that you don't factor in, factor it in. Very important. Because that's when all these unique bugs used to come out. The customer tried to, and you know, customers, they would always use products in the way that you did not build them for them to use it. That's the unique thing about customers. You build it a certain way, a customer will use it in the way that is comfortable for them. So they might end up spotting a loophole that you didn't expect because you didn't thoroughly check. I've seen this happen time and time again. In fact, we will be shocked that how did they even get to this place? Trust me, customers just do. Customers just do what they do. Is they adapt. You can't build for a 64-year-old the same way you build for a 20-year-old. A Gen Z will approach it a different way than my mother would, right? Even if it's the same banking app. All right. Little to no collaboration, that's behavioral. So when you're not collaborating with engineers enough or with the PM enough, and you're just sort of in a shadow of yourself or just protecting that QA unit, it doesn't help. Collaboration is the essence of development, right? That we worked together to be able to achieve this thing. Shared responsibility and values. So that's, ensuring that each person within the team knows what they're supposed to do, and does it within time, right? So I typically have like a product plan towards release. Product brief should be ready by this date. Development should be ready by this date. Release should be ready by this date. Inform stakeholders by this date. Whatever. That's me. That's how I work. So once I have that plan, it shows shared and if you ask Toby, I would tag you. You are the owner of this responsibility. So by the time we are reaching your side and you have not completed it, it will be obvious that something is missing here. So you need to have that shared responsibility value to be able to take on what you're supposed to do in time. And then the last but not the least is process, right? So definition of done, like I explained before, badly planned product releases, you're just releasing based on releasing sake, it will come back to hurt you. The time that you could have spent rigorously testing is what you now spend fixing bug, and the pressure from a bug is way worse than release. And I'm sure you would agree with me, right? And then another thing I want to touch on that a lot of people don't talk about often is retrospectives. What does a retrospective let you do? We have done Three Amigos, we've refined, we've developed this task, we've released it. Three Amigos is, I need to reflect on the entire process we went through in this sprint to make sure that if there was something we didn't do right, it does not repeat itself. And if there's something we did right, we continue to do it. A retrospective allows you to say, during this week, I should have done this well. I should have started writing my test cases early when the acceptance criteria was shared, but I waited till the end, right? When you are thinking like that, you are more collaborative. It allows you to be able to plan for the future even better. Things are ready before they even say that they're ready. And that's what then drives you towards like being celebrated, earning a promotion, because you are thinking of the future, right? You're retrospectively saying, in order to avoid this happening in the next sprint or in following sprint, or if I become a manager, I don't want people under me to be able to experience this sort of thing as well. That's what a retrospective does, okay? How are we feeling? How are we feeling? How's it going? How's it going?
Thank you so much, Adiola. That was such an
Fantastic.
amazing session. We learned
Awesome,
a
awesome,
lot.
awesome.
It's been
I'm
interesting. So
gonna
there are a few
stop sharing my screen and just
questions.
leaning into the questions. Yeah.
Okay, great. There are a
And
few questions
interestingly,
in
I
the
would
chat
really love
box.
to hear people ask their questions verbally because I think sometimes
Yes.
written communication is very different from audio. And I mean, if you have examples, it would really help me answer your questions properly.
O- Okay, so if you want to ask, if anybody that has any questions, please raise your hand and you'll be unmuted and you can ask your question. Also, there's a quiz there's a quiz for this session that'll be posted, and everybody should. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So the quiz will be shown. If you have any questions, please raise your hand with the reaction button so that we can unmute your mic and you can ask your
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Adiola, for the section.
questions. Thank you so much,
Can you hear
Adela.
me?
This was an amazing session. It was really eye-opening. Okay, the quiz is ongoing, and I'm waiting for those that have questions to ask. So just raise your hand.
I think Pamela was asking a question.
Yes, I was.
Go ahead.
So I was going to ask a question. So as a newbie, and you okay, let me just use myself. I joined this project and it's a fintech project, and I'm looking at the design right now, and I don't know what to do about the design. So I'm just asking, how do I spot like loopholes in that design, and how do I start creating like a test plan at the beginning of the project?
Hmm. Okay. By design, do you mean a front-end facing design?
Yes,
Okay,
UI
cool.
design.
So, what you want to do is like conventionally start with the things that are obvious. Do you have any product documentation guiding that design?
Yes, there's a product documentation.
Fantastic. Does it have acceptance criteria?
No, it doesn't.
Interesting. What does it have?
It just has like the list, like the requirements, what the business requires. I think it's a BRD.
Okay. Does it have a user story?
Yes, it does.
Okay. How many user stories does it have?
It has a bunch of user stories. I've not really gone through the old
Okay.
documents.
Okay. So what I want you to do is search that document for user stories, right? A
Okay.
user story would look something like, as a customer, I want to, so that, right?
Okay.
So use those as your first point to be able to solve some of the loophole problems. So if it has a login page, as a user, I want to be able to log into the application. Check the login page for that design. What does it have? And conventionally, what should a login page for a design have, right? I gave an example earlier. Does it have a clear description of like, can the user log in through email or through phone number? That phone number, is it for just Nigerians? So you should say +234, or is it for multiple people? So they should be able to change their telephone code and then add their number. The password, how many not necessarily digits, but
Uh,
is it clear enough for people to know what to do? The forgot password link, is it working? When they enter the application, what's the first thing they should see? Just so the basic things, start with that, and align it with the
okay.
user story. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome.
So who else
All
has a
right.
question? Please raise your hand.
Okay, I see a question from
Okay.
Kende Bandipo.
Yes.
I may have
Hi, good
answered it.
morning.
Hello.
Um, Thank you very much for the session. It was quite insightful, and I learned a lot of things. So now I have a question here. It's not a personal experience of mine, but
Mhm.
based on I've been friends with a backend engineer, and I've seen how will I say, the owner of the product slash CEO acts. And I know you said something about taking your time to test and everything, but the owner of the product, I'd like to use that word, owner of the product per se. He's someone that is very pushy and would not give even the backend engineers time to properly create what he wants and always push. Now, what would you advise someone like me who is an aspiring QA for when I get to that point? What do you think? Because I know you've mentioned something like that. You have to like tell them, in other words, Sorosoki, that it doesn't work like this. But
Yeah.
Because I know that there are lots of us that are going to be in this situation. I'm pretty sure you have been in this situation too. So how do you advise that we handle such?
Awesome. That's a very, very, very good question. I'm going to speak about my first PM experience a bit to help you answer that question, because that would align with like any first experience that you have. One of the most important things you should do when you join a company is to find alignment, and alignment with the people that matter at the company. Now, that product owner you're describing is somebody who you should align with. And by alignment, it means everything he's doing that seems wrong, act like you don't see it, because your goal is to build a collaboration process with him. So you need to figure out a way to spot what he likes, whether within the product development process, QA, like what does he really, really like? And you need to start doing that thing with him. What will happen is you become his buddy or her buddy. I'll give you an example. I remember that I gave an example of a QA engineer that is somebody that's still my friend right now. She did that so well at the company that we had worked in that when the software architect, and this was the only software architect we had, would be developing something, maybe writing an API document for engineers to work with, he would ask for her input at API documentation stage. Can you see how solid that is? So you need to, it's a level of expertise thing. You need to show that you know how to do the work. But two, you need to show that you have the ability to collaborate and align. So you need to have essentially paddies, whether it's one senior engineer or this product owner, they need to be able to rely on you for things. So it's almost like by the time it's time to test, they are more or less negotiating with you, not forcing you within a certain timeline. Does that make sense? So that one is
Okay.
more behavioral than it is technical or process. It's a behavioral thing. You just have to figure out how to become close to that person. It's a thing of wisdom. It's not something that can be explained, but once you start to notice, you need to observe things very quickly and then quickly step into the parts that you know you can play efficiently well. Sometimes it means that you will even take on a role that is not a QA role, just so you can become that person's friend. Don't worry, you have the wisdom to figure out what I just said.
Thank you, Ma. So essentially, you're saying we should kiss ass.
You should
No
what?
offense, using kiss ass, like
Professionally.
basically kiss. Yes. All right. Thank you very
Professionally,
much.
yes. Because it saves you from trouble in the future. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Questions?
Okay, can we answer the question in the Q&A? Can the band process, how can we develop the skills to spot issues while waiting for someone else?
I think I answered that when I was answering Pamela. So a lot of it is reading documentation. So look for user stories, look for acceptance criteria. One of the things I always advise anyone who gets into tech is to stay curious. Staying curious means that you are asking questions as much as possible. There's no one within a development process that will be tired of answering your question. I promise. So stay curious, read documentation. The way you build expertise is by developing your own documentation as well, and making adjustments to it as much as you can. So things like that would help. The next
There's another
one is,
question.
in a situation where QA has raised a critical issue that is still unresolved, but the PM is requesting a go live and wants to report QA to HOD, what would you advise in this case? I would advise that you document the issue that you have seen and make sure that the ogas who are the ogas see it. And if they agree that it should be released, then you release. But nobody's going to come back to you because you documented it. Let me give an example of what that means. So what that means is, I've spotted a critical issue that could possibly affect customers, right? So what you want to do as the QA is, what is the potential impact of that? Now, again, I always say that QA, you have power. You just don't know that you have power. what is the potential impact of that problem you've spotted? If you can translate it into money, revenue, trust me, they won't release that product. So if you can say something like, for every login I have done when I'm testing, at least 5 times that login fails. Translate that 5 login into 5 transfers that will not be done in that day and how much revenue it will lose. Put it inside documentation, put mail, put your own manager, put that product manager, put that product manager's Oga, send the email. If you are okay with me releasing it like this, I want to tell you that I've spotted an issue. This is what the potential impact is going to be. If we don't resolve it, this is what is going to happen. However, I'm being told that we need to go live because of a critical business requirement. Please let me know if it's okay to proceed. Shikena, you have written your English. By the time they read it, everybody cannot make decision. Do we answer QA X, or do we stand the potential of losing money? And really, sometimes it could be we'll go live, and as we go live, we continue to fix this issue. But at least you highlighted an issue that you spotted and you shared it. That's how you solve for it. It's very simple.
Okay, so well, thank you very much for the session, right? I really learned a lot. But then I want to ask a question, like a follow-up question on the aspect of finding alignment with your manager, or let's say the product person. So in process of trying to find an alignment with let's say the product, or let's say the CTO, or like an architecture engineer, and then the person like gives you some tasks that are not part of what you're supposed to do, and then you keep taking them on, and then the person now finds it like you are the go-to person to be giving you extra tasks that sometimes become overwhelming. How do you start saying no, that in a way that it will not cause a rift between you and the person? In some
Can you
way,
give
like,
me an example in plain language of what this person is asking you to do?
okay, so it's actually not a personal experience though, but yeah, it's like an intern of mine came to me that she's trying to like learn the QA. She got an internship role, so where she started learning. So sorry about the background noise. So where she started, she noticed some things that were not really okay, like the PM person, the product manager just got in after she has worked in there for 3 months. And the product manager would literally get some information from her to go and share in the stakeholders meeting, right? So she doesn't do her own due diligence. So she's the one that gives the product manager information to do all of these things, right? And then every time it has to, the product manager just make it like a duty, to a point that you have to give me, okay, let's say meeting is starting by 10. The product manager would enforce her to do some of her tasks so that she'll give that information before 10, so she'll be able to speak. So how does she manage this scenario? I don't know if I've been able to paint that clear picture.
I think to a certain degree. Is the QA part of that call?
Yeah, she will be there. And then when, funny enough, is she will say that when they're calling her name or like asking question, whatever she says, like tell the PM before the meeting is the responses. So more like the PM is the one that gives the answer she's supposed to give. So she will just stay silent all through the call.
Wow. Okay. That's a bit of a difficult one. I would start by saying that the QA shouldn't give feedback on everything. So let me tell you why this is difficult. The person has already started a terrible cadence by just giving all the feedback to the PM. So the PM is always going to expect that's what they're going to do. But in order to start to make themselves relevant, you can actually give that feedback to the PM in bits and pieces. Like it could be really simple sentences that they think they understand, but they don't, so that the QA has to be the one to explain it on the call. Does that make sense? So it's essentially just being smart about it, to the point where the PM now knows, once it's repeated like 2 or 3 times, the QA has enough energy to say, I'm going to give you as much feedback as possible, but this is not essentially what I'm supposed to be doing. I want to be able to contribute in these discussions as well. So we need to reach a compromise. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Great. We have another question in the Q&A section. It says, how do you ensure the dev guys make use of the test plan or bug tracker effectively? They prefer I send the issues I discover to the team.
Sorry, I can't find that question.
It's in the Q&A board.
Let me see if I can find it. How do you ensure the dev guys make use of the test plan or bug tracker effectively? They prefer I send the issues I discover to the team group. Send the bug tracker to the team group now. Because my understanding of a bug tracker is it has the issues, and then it has maybe screenshots or something of the it's true, and it has screenshots of the problem that you are seeing. Instead of typing it, type it inside your test plan, send the test plan into the team group. That's it. That is very simple. If you don't start the cadence of them having to do it there, they won't do it. That's all really. That's a very simple answer.
Okay, so I have another question. Actually,
Right.
this is also a friend of mine that asked. So she is a QA person, and then she created a test document using a Google Sheet. Then the PM asked her to make her the owner of the sheet, the Google Sheet she created. And then she did, but then she came back feeling so bad that after she's worked so hard, the PM now is the potential owner of the sheet she is working on. How do you advise she go about it subsequently?
Everybody knows that she's not the one that created it now. I don't think that that's a problem. What does the PM being the owner of the sheet do? A Google Sheet can have many owners. It doesn't mean that you're the one that did the work. So maybe help me understand what the problem is. I don't hear it. I don't see it yet.
Okay, so basically, maybe I've not checked so well, but owner can be one, but you can have many editors.
Correct.
So it's the owner that can decide who stays on the sheet and who leaves.
But they won't remove her now. She's the one that is doing the work.
Okay, she was looking at it from this angle of what happened the day they, because she has over time, like over time, oh, if you do this, they're going to remove you. And so she's just kind of concerned that giving them that much power.
Rukaya, can you please mute yourself? Rukaya, can the host or panelist please help me mute her? Thanks. Sorry, go ahead.
So she was worried of the fact that what happens the day they decide to just kick her off the project. It's not like it's a company, it's kind of a project settings where everybody gathers to, and she's the QA on the project. So she was worried that what happened if they decide to kick her off, and then that would be it for her.
I see. I think that's what she's more scared of. I don't know how you solve for that, because even sometimes when you show value, people are just the way they are. She still has edit access to the sheet, right?
Yes, she does.
Okay. So right now, I wouldn't worry about anything. If your friend, the QA, is providing value, essentially putting the details of this doesn't sound like an organization. It sounds like a project, right? So ideally, she shouldn't be the owner of the sheet, to be honest. If I were the PM in that case, I would own the sheet and even share with the QA to add the details in. And the reasons for like termination of a contract can be very different. I think what you should ask your friend is that she has maybe a contract in place that after, I don't know if it's paid or non-paid, after a certain period, this is how much I should get paid. This is the date I should get paid. So that it's not like they're manipulating her into doing work and they're not giving the right offerings or services that they had initially promised. And the moment she stops to see any of that, she should raise a complaint. It's not hard. At the end of the day, if she has edit access and something happens and for some reason she doesn't feel like she's being appreciated well, if she starts putting QA something inside the sheet, it's going to be obvious that the person doing the work is not there again. Do you understand? So the ownership of the sheet is not a problem. The problem is where your friend feels like they're not getting value for the job that they signed up to do. Right. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, QA has one more question. How do you get into the testing phase from the beginning when you work in a fast-paced environment, when there's no breathing space at all for you? There's always something waiting for you to test, and you don't even have time to read documentation and draft your test cases on time. What do you advise us to do in that scenario? I believe I have answered it in my actual talk. You have to create the time. The beginning of a career is probably the most time that you spend a lot of your hours pouring into development. So if you have just started as a QA, I actually don't want to hear that you don't have time for reading a documentation. I don't want to hear it. There's nothing that you are testing that is not as important as the documentation that you should read so that you can make the right decisions on testing plans. What I'm even hearing from that question is almost like people are telling you what to test, not that you are developing your testing plan by yourself. And that's a disaster waiting to happen as well. So you need to create a balance for yourself by either, I don't know, and these are, again, this is behavioral, this is process driven. Either you wake up early in the day, read the documentation, get into work, read the documentation at night, but you have to factor it in at some point within your product development schedule or product development cycle. Because at the end, remember, if something is not working, it's still you that will fix it. So do you want to save yourself the time and the stress of having to do it double by just solving it first? Remember, prevention over detection. So yeah. How do you balance working under pressure when the devs don't do their work on time and the HOD is on your neck to test within the hours to deploy on time? You tell them that you cannot deploy within the time frame of the rush. I've answered that question. You need to own your space. You have power. You just need to use it well. And by having power, I don't mean being aggressive. They're two different things. Having power is essentially saying, and there are many ways to display your power. You will see, I've said this thing multiple times. In the beginning of the development process, QA has said I need 5 days. This thing was not ready until 13th, and people are saying I should do it in 1 day. It is not possible. It is not. At best, you can tell them within that 1 day, this is what I will be able to complete. I can't finish the entire thing. If you now want to do Superman this thing for them, you can, but it's going to bite you because you're going to be up, for longer hours. I don't think it's right for a tired QA to be doing work because you end up missing things. That's literally what happens. Your eyes are required to be able to spot things really quickly. And because of that sense of nudging that you have, you don't want to miss spotting things that are potentially bad use cases or bugs, right? So remember, flexibility, right? So you have 1 day. Tell them what you can fix in that 1 day, but you can't do everything. It's very simple. The communication is not hard. It's just we're also working in environments, and let me not act like I'm not taking into consideration that we have startups or businesses that don't work in the way that they should. I completely acknowledge that. But where you communicate early enough that this is what you require, people will start to understand it. People will start to understand it. And when you start to build the right alliances, they won't force you to do work in an unreasonable span of time. Trust me. You don't have paddy. That's why you're having that problem. If you have paddy, you will not have that problem. Trust me. Okay. I think I have time for one more question.
Yes, this is the last question, and I think it's on the board.
Okay.
It says, what if in a scenario where the documentation is not exactly readily available and the basic information of a product is mostly orally passed? Wow.
Love this question. And this happens in many use cases where the PM doesn't do their job of documenting. As the QA, do the job. Remember that I said there are some cases where you have to do work that they did not send you because you want to do your own part well. As a QA, and Toby has worked with me before, so I'm sure he can give you many examples. Toby knows how to write user story. Toby knows how to write an acceptance criteria because that's just how Copper is built, right? I'm going to share a resource with you guys. It's called a Gherkin matrix. Give me a moment. I want to drop a link in the chat. And I'm sending this only because it is really going to help you in your career within tech. I'm going to send the prompt and you guys can just kind of read anything that comes. I don't want to send an exact link, right? How do I send this to everyone? Maybe the host and panelists should help me. I've sent something to you guys. Maybe you send it to the full chat. So where it's orally passed, that oral that was passed, write it inside a Word document. Then now tell the the PM, I wrote this based on what you had shared with me. Are they accurate? Now, what you've done is you've helped the PM because they're too lazy to write. So they'll read it and say, okay, this is right. Okay, this one, no, I'll change it a bit. This one is this. Once you have that, you have your work. See, at the end of the day, documentation is still important. Write it. If you are working on orally passed story, go le work o. Because PM can say when you want to release something that's not what I said. How do you want to say that that's not what was approved? Because all of you did oral. The call was not recorded. It wasn't written. In a documentation, you can say the PM went through this with me. And the PM cannot lie. Why? Because they did. Do you understand? So there's a basis for which you also need to hold yourself accountable. May you not go cast for front. Sorry, I usually don't speak pidgin, but very important. May you not go cast for front. Do the thing that will help you avoid a bug that will make you lose your job. Do it now. That's the simple English. Hope that helps. All right.
Thank you so
Thank you all so much.
Adiola. So we've come to the end of this session. Everybody say thank you to Adiola because this was amazing. I learned a lot, and I'm sure you all did as well. This was very, very insightful. There were many things that we definitely picked from it. So don't forget to follow up with your learning, go through your notes, and also the recording for this session will be made available on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel, you'll see it, and we'll also be sharing more resources to help you prepare. So thank you so much for joining, and thank you very much, Adela. I really appreciate this time that you spent with us. It's over to you, Toby. Do you have anything else to say? Please take it.
Wow, what an interesting session. Adiola, no capo. I learned a lot from this session. In fact, it's refreshed my head from so many things I might have forgotten in the past, And this last question is just applying sense, like Adiola rightly said, save your job, do the right thing. And it's very important that we clearly understand that quality assurance, what it speaks to is that we should ensure proper process are being, followed. And as QA, we should also be in the forefront of this. If documentations are not in place, we should push for it. If PMs are not writing stories, we can take up that part and write stories ourselves, align with the PMs and all. I've been in organization, this fast-paced environment. I think we need to even have a talk show around this. And I'm beginning to hear a lot of QA say, there's pressure, we work in a fast-paced environment, there's no time to document, man, it's not really helping us, guys. We need to fix this, process over speed. Yeah, we try to move fast, but again, we shouldn't ignore the process part of it and all. But again, Ajola, I'm really grateful for this session, and man, thank you so much. It's a
Thank
privilege to
you.
have
Even though I can't
you.
see your face, please, you guys should give Mr. Toby a big round. I'm only calling him Mr. Toby on this call because he's my guy. Outside of this call, his name is Toby to me. But please, let's just celebrate him. I'm really in awe of what you're doing, that you're able to just gather people from all over the world to boost their skills. This is awesome. And I hope no one tells you or makes you feel less. You're doing something really, really, really great. And if you invite me again, I'll come. You see, some people are already voting for Man U in this chat. I'm a positive influencer. But thank you so much, Toby, and the rest of the team. Also, really good feedback for your team as well. Everyone that's interacted with me was extremely professional, from WhatsApp to emails to even the way it was done on LinkedIn and Instagram. You're building something very big, Toby. Well done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
So much, Adila. Thank you, Toby.
Thanks, guys.
I think we've come to
Bye.
the end of the session today. Bye. Please take your lessons to LinkedIn, write about it, go to Instagram, and we'll see you all very soon in the next session. Bye, guys.